Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14. Today we are previewing Vanderbilt's Week 2 matchup against the Elon Phoenix. The Commodores, of course, huge Week 0 performance, beating Hawaii 63-10. Blake, we both know Hawaii is awful, but a pretty impressive performance for Vanderbilt in Week 1 as it gets ready to take on Elon in its home opener, which will be 6 o'clock Central. And you can catch that one on the SEC Network Plus or ESPN Plus if you prefer that name instead.
Well, I mean, considering what happened the previous season, which we talked about, was why we had some hesitations heading into the Hawaii game. Although, as we said, Vanderbilt's the superior team in terms of, I think, talent across the board, and we saw that play out. But you'll take 63 points and a 53-point win in Week 1 any day of the week against a Division I opponent. So, yeah, I don't, I can't imagine if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you're coming out of this feeling pessimistic that you beat a team 63-10. On the flip side of that, I don't know how much you gain coming out of it. For me, I think it's a situation where there was obviously a lot there that you could see, and you had said, and we talked about this, you felt like Vanderbilt was going to be improved, and I think you see some of that in Week 1 for sure, because again, they don't win 63-10 even against an inferior Hawaii team if that doesn't happen. But I think there's a lot for Clark Lee to work with on this team. As we mentioned, I don't know if that means they win 5 or 6 games, but I think it's still a team that, just to get off to that kind of start and to not have, what are people thinking, right? When it's Hawaii scores that early touchdown and all of a sudden, like, you're just having probably those flashbacks and thinking, oh my gosh, here we go. But it's complete dominance after that. So I think to see that and how that game played out, that gives you some optimism heading into another game that I think Vanderbilt should take care of business. Maybe not in 63-10 fashion, but you give yourself a chance to build that early confidence, and that was a great way to do it heading into this one against Elon.
Yeah, just for context, Vanderbilt had some key players out in that game, played 58 guys on offense and defense. I'm sure more if you add special teams. And really took its foot off the gas late in the third quarter. So it could have even been uglier than it was. But Elon, we don't have a line on this game because Elon is FCS. But looking at Jeff Sagarin, he has updated his ratings after Vanderbilt's Week 0 win as well as everybody else's. Vanderbilt is about a 25.5-point favorite according to his rankings. This game, of course, in Nashville. And Elon, just kind of an ordinary FBS team. I think Athlon might have put it 25th in its poll, but it's not, I believe, ranked. The preseason poll, this team was 7-6 a year ago. Scored 267 points, gave up, 287. Loses its quarterback, Matthew McKay from Montana State, who threw for just over 2,000 yards and 16 scores, is their guy now. Davis Cheek was just their do-everything guy a year ago. Not much in the way of a rushing attack, judging by last year. I think got 9 defensive starters back. So Elon maybe not a pushover, but this is not a game that Vandy should have a lot of trouble with. And I can go into some maybe not reservations because I think Vanderbilt's going to win, but this happened in Week 0. You maybe don't expect that to translate to Week 2, but I don't see a lot of problem for Vandy in this one, Blake.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I don't think Vanderbilt's going to be a team that kind of comes out and all of a sudden has the big head and thinks they're going to win the SEC after, doing what they did to Hawaii. I feel like they're, Clark Lee, pretty stoic approach to things. And, I'm sure he was very pleased with a lot of what they did. But as we know with head coaches, there was probably a lot of things in his mind they could have done better against Hawaii. And I think that's where you'll see that approach here. What are the things they can work on to get ready for that difficult SEC slate that we've talked about? And yeah, with Elon, like you said, we can only go by the research we have available to us. We're not there. We can't see everything going on, but it does look like a team that's going to, transition quarterback wise and have to replace some guys on that side of things. And I think their defense, just kind of looking at, they've got a new defensive coordinator, I think, and just trying to iron out some things on that side of the ball. Again, there's not a lot if we just look at Elon maybe compared to some of these other teams we've talked about that are going to play SEC opponents that were like, oh, okay, well, these teams are, maybe top 10 teams, and you can kind of identify some of those things that really stand out. I don't, again, just from what we have to go on, I can't see a ton of that. I mean, it's a team that, like we said, does have a change on defense, but they got some guys coming back, and they got a lot of guys coming back on that side. Gave up, I think it was like 26, 27 points a game last year. Um, so yeah, I think, again, for me, for Vanderbilt, this should be a game where you're just trying to continuing to improve on some of those things that, maybe you didn't feel like were perfect against Hawaii. And I think I'm most interested still to kind of see the evolution of the passing game
Yeah.
for Elon, or not for Elon, for Vanderbilt. Because I want to see what that looks like from a downfield passing attack, because as we know, you're not going to be able to do the things on the ground against SEC opponents. And I know we're going kind of beyond this, but I think that's what you want to see if you're a Vanderbilt fan. Just continue to see improvement, I think, in the downfield passing game from Mike Wright. If that happens, to me, this is kind of one of those games you really try to work on that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, if you're Vanderbilt, I think that's one of your cautions is, can you throw the ball downfield? Because we watched the Hawaii game. Mike Wright didn't inspire a ton of confidence. He'd make some plays, but a lot of his passing yards were shovel passes and some things like that where he had some help. When he really had to make throws downfield, he didn't throw any picks. He could have had one pick, but just the throws weren't there always like they needed to be. I think when the competition gets tougher, that's something to watch. On the other hand, he did run for 163 yards, including an 87-yard touchdown. He's a 10,800-meter guy. They looked faster around him at the running back and receiver positions. They definitely look faster on the defensive end. And I thought their defense was interesting, Blake. They actually looked pretty good. They were able to generate a little bit of a pass rush by sending guys from all over the place, which they didn't really do a year ago in terms of getting sacks. They got 3 where they had 9 all of last year. But I think the thing to watch here that could implode Vanderbilt a little bit in this one, and I don't think they'll lose, but if they did, it's turnovers. Last week, Vanderbilt got 2 fumble recoveries for touchdowns, so that accounted for 14 of the 63 points. Vandy was +2 in turnovers last week. That's one place where you would expect that to come back a little bit to the norm. And again, you're a little concerned about Vanderbilt in terms of the passing game and just making sure you don't get some picks. So that's the one thing I would caution people about after week 1 is there were a few things if you watch that game to be concerned about.
yeah, I mean, you go with what works. And I think you saw what worked in week 1, and they'll try to do the same stuff here. But I think you do want to kind of see the evolution of the passing game, knowing that you won't be able to necessarily run the ball the way you did against Hawaii, against pick an SEC opponent in any of them, right? And I think that's something you start to look ahead towards. But the focus is on Elon, and I think again you'll see a lot of that. I think with Mike Wright in this game is doing a lot of that same stuff. And as we always say, if you have a quarterback that can do a little of both, that certainly helps. Keeps the defense on their toes. And I think just watching how the downfield passing game progresses, that will be one of the bigger storylines for Vanderbilt, not just in this game, I think, but moving forward, and should give them an opportunity to kind of keep that momentum rolling in a game like this. And like you said, I think there's still a lot on the table that we just don't know about with this team, judging from one game against a Hawaii team that is as in big of a rebuilding mode as any team we've
Mm-hmm.
seen in a while, I think. So with that in mind, I still think again Vanderbilt's the better team here and should take care of business. And again, just kind of look at. I think your focus is really on some of those things that you want to see them continue to get better in as they approach SEC play. So.
Okay, I'll give you a pick here. I'll go 44-17 Vanderbilt. What do you think?
Mm,
A little high?
I I will go. I'll go 41 to. I'll go 41 to. I'll go 41-17. How about that?
Okay.
We're
So
about
we,
on the
we
same
both we
page.
both think the defense is better, the offense is better. We've got a few questions about that. But anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to all our videos. We have picked all week 1 SEC games. So thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.